Hi, I'm a sponsored artist with Audeze, and I'm a full-time audio engineer. As a result, I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of the headphones in the Audeze lineup. And in this video, I'm going to compare and contrast between the two variants of the LCD-X platform, the open back variant, the LCD-X, and the closed back variant, the LCD-XC. I'm going to share my perspective as an audio engineer. These headphones are very popular with both audio engineers and audiophiles or hi-fi listeners, but what I look for in headphones as an audio engineer is very different, because as an audio engineer, I'm looking for headphones that are as true as possible, for headphones that don't flatter or accentuate certain aspects of the spectrum or certain frequencies, because that can impair my judgment and perspective and could cause me to overmix or undermix certain aspects of the song. Whereas an audiophile is typically looking to have headphones that sound as good as possible as an end listener. So they're two very different perspectives, and I'll be sharing my perspective as an engineer. The LCD-X platform has emerged as one of the most popular platforms in the headphone market in general in the last few years. So I expect a lot of you may be comparing between these two models. My perspective is going to be based on about a year of full-time work with these headphones. I've had them in my possession. I've been using them day in and day out. I've had a chance to do lots of critical listening back and forth with them, and I'm excited to share with you guys what I've learned. So let's hop in. Let me start off by saying that considering the difference in design, that one of these is closed back and one of these is open back, Audeze has done an incredible job in getting the sound of both of these models to be similar to each other. That said, there are certainly some significant differences to take into account. Right off the top, I'm going to say that probably one of your most important buying factors is going to be whether you need to block out background noise. For me, I work a lot on the road, and I can't always control my environment. And I also like to work in coffee shops sometimes. And there's no possible way of working on an open back headphone in those situations, right? So for me, I found myself using the LCD-XC in these types of environments where I needed to get something done. I needed to critically listen to something, or I needed to get a mix done, and I was on the road and I had the ability to do that. And that's a pretty significant advantage. The LCD-X being open, you have to be in a fairly quiet environment, even if you're at home. Background noise like fans from your computer or a fridge or something like that can interfere and mask certain frequencies with open back designs. That's the first thing I'll say up front. My other comments, I'll group into three buckets: soundstage, frequency response, and transient response. In terms of soundstage, you would expect a closed back headphone to have a bit of a narrower soundstage to it. And I definitely noticed that with the LCD-XC. It doesn't feel like one-dimensional or closed in. It has a beautiful soundstage for a closed back headphone. But when you put on the open back LCD-X, it's very noticeable that the soundstage is wider. The X in general has quite a wide soundstage compared to even some of the other Audeze models like the LCD-5, which I also own. So I would say that the LCD-XC is a little narrower and the LCD-X is quite wide sounding, and that can influence your decisions in terms of panning and how the music sounds. I like the sound of a really wide soundstage, but it isn't necessarily something that I'm always looking for as an engineer when making stereo field decisions. So now in terms of frequency response, there are some interesting differences to note between them as well. If you look at the frequency response charts from Audeze, you'll see that they're not identical, and it's impossible to tune these headphones identically. So with the LCD-XC, the closed back versions, there is less low end in them altogether from 500 hertz and down. You can see they are flatter in the low end and low mid range, but there's less bass in them overall compared to the X open backs. So the X from 500 hertz down is quite a significant boost in low end. It's quite audible when you put them on. And it just depends on what you're looking for. I found that the sound of the XC felt a little brighter to me because the high end is in a similar place, but with less lower mids and low end, it gives them a bit of a brighter feel to them. And the LCD-X to me felt a little bit more balanced and flat because of the extra low end. So those are our differences in frequency response. Now let's talk about transient response or the dynamic feel of the headphones. The LCD XC had a very tight and punchy feel to them. That could be maybe as a result of having the earpieces containing the sound. They're in a closed environment versus having sound that's able to bleed out. So to me, they sounded quite punchy. The LCD X sounded also punchy, but a bit more natural and neutral sounding to me. They were both great, but I found that the open back aspect of the LCD X sounded a little bit more natural to me, and the XC sounded just a little bit oomphy to me. Now, one thing I wanted to mention is, for me, coming across from a background of mixing on speakers, on monitor speakers, and in rooms, I also noticed something I wanted to share. So many of you may be in this same boat where you're working in kind of non-ideal rooms, and the low end is always the toughest part to deal with. When you have acoustic treatment, even if you have quite a bit of acoustic treatment in your room and the room is pretty dialed, it's still fairly common for the low end to have a longer decay time than your mids and tops. It's just because low frequencies are much harder to soak into the absorption. You need thicker absorption to be able to attenuate those. So the room I was working in had a decay time of about 200, 250 milliseconds north of 300 hertz. And below that, down into 60 and 50 hertz, it would ring out up to, say, 500 to 700 milliseconds. And the human ear perceives longer decaying frequencies, even if they're not higher in amplitude, as louder. So I had become quite attuned to mixing my low end based on this phenomena that was occurring in my room. So when I went over to headphones, especially to the LCD XC that have a very tight and punchy feel to them, I started turning in mixes where I was overmixing the bass. So I was perceiving less bass because it was tighter, and so I mixed the bass louder. And then when I listened to it on other systems, I could immediately tell. I said, oh, I've overmixed the bass. It's too loud. It's a bit muddy and stuff like that. And I needed to adjust. So with the LCD X, because they have more low end in them, just in the headphone, in the tuning, I found that was less of an issue for me. I didn't overmix the low end as much because the low end was actually louder and possibly even decayed a little longer than with the LCD XC. Awesome. So those are the differences. Again, they are very similar. They're both incredible headphones, but if you're trying to choose between them, those are the considerations that I would keep in mind. So there you have it, folks. I hope this video was useful for you in helping you make the decision around which of these headphones is right for you. If you liked this video, please slap that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, and make sure that you activate notifications so you get the heads up on all of our videos as soon as they're posted. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you soon. Cheers.